welcome to this new episode of Tropical Insights. We are very pleased to have you again with us today. And also I am very pleased to have this topic on tropical fruit production and climate change in southern Florida. And for that, we have today very special guests. We have Dr. Jonathan Crane, who is Associate Center Director at the Tropical Research and Education Center of the University of Florida in Homestead, who is besides a tropical fruit crop specialist. We also have with us today Dr. Edwin Gutierrez, who is a Postdoctoral Associate also here at TREC in the Ecophysiology Lab. So welcome to this Tropical Insight episode to you two, Jonathan and Edwin. And so tell us a little bit more, Jonathan, about your history here in TREC and Homestead. Like, how has been this journey in your life at the University of Florida?
Okay. So I came to Florida in 1981 as a master's student at the fruit crops department at the University of Florida in Gainesville. And I did my master's at Lake Alfred, working with Dr. Larry Parsons on citrus and water use of citrus at different plant spacings. I then completed my master's in 84 and started a PhD program. I went back up to Gainesville, worked with Dr. Fred Davies on blueberries and flooding stress. Graduated in 1986 and, of course, was looking for a job. Miami-Dade County extension agent, multi-county extension agent position opened up in Miami-Dade. And I spoke to one of the predecessors that had that position for some 20, 30 years, Seymour Goldweber, and spoke to him about the job and everything else. And he said, you know, this is an entirely different world than North Florida in every way possible.
Be prepared.
Be prepared. So he said, you know, it's super interesting, very different, very diverse. And so we spoke for quite a while, and I said, sure, let's give it a try. So my wife and family, we moved down here. And so I was the multi-county tropical fruit crops extension agent for about 24 months. And then the position here at TREC opened up. The tropical fruit crop specialist, horticulturist position opened up. So I applied and was fortunate enough to get the position. And so I've been here since 1989 at TREC. So it's been a few years. Yeah. But it's been wonderful.
And you decided I will stay at Homestead.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had no idea of the opportunities that I was going to have here in Homestead with the University of Florida at the Tropical Research and Education Center. It was incredible because the industry, the tropical fruit industry, the growers absolutely have been wonderful over the years. I mean, just really wonderful people to work with. And the opportunities to collaborate with the scientists here at TREC. You know, we're so fortunate we have many different disciplines here. So we don't have to look to the outside to find somebody that we want to work with. So, you know, we over the years have been on numerous teams of us working on projects and people outside of TREC too. I mean, also the main campus and other research centers. So it's been a wonderful time.
And the extension office is just one block from here.
That's
so you
right.
just moved one block.
I just moved one block. That was it.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so, you know, many times I'm out in the field, walk around, TREC, and you're like, I can't believe they're paying me to be here.
It's a beautiful station, and it's wonderful to be around. That's for sure. I love it. And tell us, Edwin, how it's been your journey to your, of course, life and getting here in beautiful Homestead.
I am agronomist in Colombia, and in 2011, I got a fund from the Colombian government to do my advanced degree, to get my PhD. So I got a 5-year sponsor from the Colombian government to go to Brazil. And then in 2016, I got my PhD. And I had been working in agronomy. I love fruits. That's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2016, I had the opportunity to meet Jonathan Crane and these people the first time I came. And I started knowing a little bit more about this war and interacting, because we in Colombia and Brazil we grow also fruit crop, but even having mangoes in Sao Paulo, in Colombia, but every single place, culture, varieties, environment makes a different way to grow. And so, I had been working also from 2016 and 20. I worked in cacao and another species there, mostly in research. And then I received the invitation from this amazing team, which I am honored to be participating in this project with avocado. So that since 2022, I am here working with an avocado project, looking for 2 components that I'm going to explain later.
Mm-hmm.
With more later.
Well, taking advantage of some data that Jonathan has shared with us today, we can say that it is obvious that in the sunshine state, citrus are predominant. Yeah, but aside from citrus, aside from these fruit crops, tropical fruits are very important too. We have around 15,000 acres grown on tropical fruits here in Miami-Dade County. From those acres, 3/4 are planted with avocados, mangoes, and guavas, which is a lot. So it is no doubt that tropical fruits are important for Florida. And what we wanted to focus in this first question from you, Jonathan, is in relation to the history of tropical fruits here in southern Florida and what we are experiencing now with the climate change. How you see that this thing is affecting us, how we grow, how we are producing. In other words, how you foresee the challenges that we are facing in relation to climate change and these tropical fruits in the region.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I would say probably the primary challenge with the climate is predictability. Since if you look at the historic weather patterns over, let's say, the last 30 plus years, we all know from the climatologists and the scientists that we have been warming. The climate has been warming, mm-hmm. And certainly, I mean, if you look even today, our sea surface temperatures, which drive a lot of the climate, are warmer than at any time that we've been recording it since the 1800s. And the air temperatures likewise. So what has happened is the weather is dramatically changing, but it's not like a smooth transition to just warmer temperatures, mm-hmm. right? It's become more erratic. Mm-hmm. The extremes are more extreme, especially the heat is more extreme. The patterns seem to be changing. So, historically we had our wet season was May through September, dry season October through April. Mm-hmm. Well, we got quite a bit of rain during our quote unquote dry season. So mm-hmm. we're seeing, are we in for just, more unpredictable and erratic change in the weather patterns? Our dry periods and the wet periods are now going to be different, maybe longer, maybe shorter, maybe multiple, maybe more intense. And why is that important? It's because it affects the growth and development and the production of different tropical fruits because they all have their optimum temperature ranges at which they do best. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know if you want me to keep going.
No, I was just thinking about this. No, excellent. Because I mentioned just 3. If you were about to bet in the future, which are the crops? Because as climate is changing and we have probably less freezing events in Central Florida. We were discussing that in the previous night workshop that you guys were doing here and also in the extension office. Yeah. If those freezing episodes are fewer, you can start growing more tropical fruits, Central Florida. So which will be the one that you will say, these are probably the winners that will start expanding. People will find an option rather than citrus.
Well, in fact, that's exactly, ever since citrus greening and citrus canker have been here, citrus growers have been looking for alternatives, especially because of citrus greening. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I can tell you it's already been happening in the past 5 years, 7, actually 5, maybe even 10 years, but it's accelerated in the last 5 years. So we see people interested, and actually there are new plantings. Let me just back up one second. So in Florida, historically, people have tried most of these, 30-odd more tropical fruits almost everywhere in the state. Mm-hmm. But historically, up until very recently, almost all those acreages of tropical fruits, including avocados for the most part, and mangoes, failed in Central Florida. Mm-hmm. And pretty much your tropical fruit had to be grown along the coast from, let's say, Palm Beach County south, along the coast and down to Dade, or on the west coast from about Pinellas County or Sarasota County south along the border, right? So we were confined. Whereas most of all the other acreage of mangoes and avocados and things were killed off by freezing temperatures in the 1980s, the 1960s, even in the late 1800s, and in the 1950s. I mean, there was 600 acres of lychee in Central Florida. 2 nights of freezing weather in 1957, 58, I believe. I wasn't there, but
you know your history.
I know my history. Yeah, and they were killed, and so it was mostly confined. But what has been happening in the past 5-10 years is because of the change in the climate. There's now certainly over 160 acres of avocado in you could call it Central Florida. So we're looking at Polk County, Martin County, Indian River, Okeechobee County. Mangoes is another one. So you were asking which crops I think you're going to see. So you're going to see an increase in, you could potentially, and we are seeing, increase in avocados. Definite increase in mangoes, for sure.
This problem of avocados that we are facing here in Southern Florida, the laurel wheel, is this expected to be also giving us trouble over there?
Interesting. Yeah, and this is one of the conversations I have with people besides, what are the probabilities of having a freeze event, right? And especially when you have young trees, they're much more susceptible to dying than mature trees. So you've got to get to 8-10 years old before you're a little bit more comfortable. And part of the conversation I have with avocados is laurel wilt, which is a devastating disease, kills avocado trees, and you're talking about 4 to 8 weeks after the tree is inoculated with the fungus by ambrosia beetles. The ambrosia beetles are found throughout Florida, and especially the red bay ambrosia beetle, which was the initial beetle that introduced the pathogen, is found throughout the southeastern U.S., all the way west to Texas, into Texas, up to Tennessee, up to North Carolina, all the way south. And so this beetle's not going to be killed by, at least for a large part of the southeastern U.S., it's not going to be killed by cold temperatures because it lives about 90% of its life inside a tree. Yeah. So I do bring up to them, I said, is your planting, where's your planting located? And is it adjacent to natural areas? And then I tell them the story. I said, well, look, there's an ambrosia beetle that is inoculating trees in the Lauraceae, native trees, red bays, swamp bays, and a number of other species, and killing them with the pathogen that kills them, that they transmit. And this is happening all over the southeastern U.S. And so if your grove is bordered by a natural area, I tell them, look, do you know what native trees you have in your woods in Lauraceae? And a lot of times people aren't aware. And I said, well, do you see dead trees out in the forest?
No.
And so I'm trying to make them aware, and I'm saying, and I said, look, we do know that the ambrosia beetle, the red bay ambrosia beetle, and there's actually 4 or 5 other ones that can now transmit the disease as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine, they are in South Florida. There's over 20 species of ambrosia beetles in Florida, 14 of which have been found in avocado groves, 10 of which we know are contaminated with the pathogen, and 4 or 5 we know that transmitted. So I tell people, look, they're not generally attracted to small trees. I can't tell you exactly what size tree they attack, but generally I would say it's trees that are more like 10, 12 plus years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. So they're probably safe for 5, 10 years for sure.
After all the investment,
After all the
expectations of having a nice crop.
So you're sort of, and I'm telling you, hopefully we will have some better answers.
Yeah, and talking about that and better answers, we know that Edwin is working on plant adaptations, like a rootstock science, to test, adaptation to southern Florida conditions in terms of avocados, but also tolerance to this big problem that Jonathan is telling us. So how you see, Edwin, will be the future of your project? You see that it will get us soon an answer and an option for people that want to grow those avocados in Florida?
This project that I'm going to talk a little bit, it's how can we increase the diversity? Because I think diversity is a key factor, not just in agriculture, but in human relation. We are here at Trek building new relation every day based on diversity. So this project that we are working with, basically we are basically testing new genotypes, what we call basically new pools and new tools to interact with this in these South Florida conditions and see what happens, because how the plants respond having that amount of water or salt or we don't know. It had been tested and researched in the history. I remember Dr. Randy Plotz. There is a lot of research, but this new component that we are testing now, what it has new, like a new aspect maybe that just try to compare. We are testing different rootstocks, which is basically the part of the plant that is in contact with soil, and how the plant respond and interact and communicate with those commercial avocados. Because at the end, what we need is the fruit. So we know that some species and some we call like varieties, they respond different based on the weather. But what we don't know and we are testing is how they interact with those rootstocks and with the component of laurel wheel that you had been mentioned.
So you think that there will be an option in the near future that we have a combination of the rootstock and a scion that is giving us some protection against the laurel wheel issue, or is something that requires more time?
Yeah, I think we always keep the hope. That's we are alive because we have the hope and the kids, because that means that we are always looking for new answer and concept, especially because it had been mentioned many times in different scenarios that South Florida and America in general, not just America, but all, we are based on diversity. And for example, avocados came from Central America, this area, and the face or the picture that we are seeing today is just a small point into the whole picture, because we have a lot of new genes and new varieties or new components that we need to test. So of course we are just testing a little bit spot into the whole picture. But yeah, talking about diversity, Jonathan, so how do you think that this, Jonathan, you already mentioned and talking about the history, how do you think that this component, the diversity, in your concept, how is gonna remark or enhance those problems that you mentioned to bring that fruit crops again in a rising way?
Yeah, no, I think the work that you and Dr. Schaefer are doing on the rootstock and rootstock scion combinations in avocado, has to be done to see if there's a combination that shows some promise.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's going to take quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's, almost an infinite number of combinations that could be tested, right? At the same time, there's another project that Dr. Gazis is leading, which is screening germplasm for tolerance or resistance to laurel wilt.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this project where she's been leading this project. I'm just sort of tagging along.
Mm-hmm.
She has been bringing in germplasm from the Mexican avocado, one of the Mexican avocado germplasm repositories. So they're collaborating with us, and testing them. And I'm talking about thousands of seedlings, growing them up and then inoculating with the pathogen to see what happens. And so with that, she has found about probably 3 or 4 that seem to at least initially tolerate the pathogen. And there's about 21, we have about 21 trees that have sort of passed first base with this. And so they're being grown out now, and we're going to be planting some into the field, but also propagating them again to do another round of inoculations, because you really have to be sure.
Yeah.
So, it's a slow process. And so I would say, even if let's say we found a rootstock that was somewhat tolerant, then again, we would have to test it with different scions to see if it imparted some resistance or tolerance from the rootstock, right? Mm-hmm. Because we know the rootstock influences the scion. Mm-hmm. But as you've seen some of the rootstock scion combinations that you've tested, one combination as the rootstock seems to work a little bit, and then you flip it over and it dies. So it's very complicated. And so it would take a while, I think it's all necessary work. It's just going to take a lot longer than any of us would wish. I mean, you look at examples, citrus screening.
Yeah.
So it's and hopefully, if the technology progresses rapidly enough, perhaps CRISPR or something could come in and help. Even if we had CRISPR today working on avocado resistance to laurel wilt, I think it would still take 10 years.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can't just create something and, okay, go ahead and go plant this. It's got to be tested.
In the meantime, I am aware that you guys are testing different crops. We were talking earlier about coffee.
Right.
So how do you see, well, we already have our bets high on avocados, mangoes. I love mangoes from Florida, by the way. But what would be already plan B's and C's in that line of thinking? Other than you say, maybe this passion fruit, dragon fruit.
Yeah. I think one of the smart things that IFAS has done in the past, I forget now, 5, maybe more, are these seeded grants. Mm-hmm. Where they're offering faculty small sums of money to go ahead and test out some new things or new crops. And so I think we're always looking for new crops. Just to go back on mango, I think there's if the climate cooperates, I think we could see a substantial increase in mango production, as I was mentioning before. Why? Because the diversity of varieties is so great that you have 3 markets. You have the fresh market, the green market, and the baby fruit market. Mm-hmm. And especially with the fresh market, the greater the diversity of varieties that you can get, there's more and more interest in that. And so there's good prices. So as far as other crops, I think, so we have here a chacharu, which is a mangosteen relative. We've had a graduate student, and now he's got his PhD, Federico Sanchez, and he's been growing it for probably 7 years or so, and there's a few other small plantings. But that's one that I think, as a mangosteen relative, has a potential. Not that we're going to see 10,000 acres, but you can see quite a bit of acreage because it's an excellent crop. I think lychee, I already know that the lychee plantings and longan plantings are increasing to our north. So that's two more. And lychee is a hugely popular crop. It has some issues now with the lychee Iranos mite, but I don't think they're insurmountable. We have two entomologists working on that, and so I think that's going to be a successful story. Other crops that I would try, as you mentioned, passion fruit is another one, and I think passion fruit not just being grown outdoor but under protected culture.
Okay.
And as a fresh fruit.
Yeah.
This is not for processing. This is for fresh fruit. Dragon fruit is another one. I think people should also try and think about cherimoya.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so cherimoya, historically, people have tried it in Florida. And it either got killed because they were in a cold area, right, north of Homestead, or they were in Homestead and it's not adapted to this hot climate. So now, if we don't have, frequent or freezing weather, I would try cherimoya in Central Florida.
Amazing.
That would be
amazing. Amazing flavors, amazing different colors here in Southern Florida. Thank you very much, Jonathan and Edwin, for this time with us in Tropical Insights. I imagine that you guys want to give us some final insights on this very important topic. So please, Jonathan, tell us something that you see that you consider could be important for us in the future in relation to this important topic.
I think it's going to be important that we are now going to have a tropical fruit crop breeder. And this breeder is going to have a lot of opportunities. There's really too much to do. Not they're not going to be looking for things. And so Dr. Jupreet Singh is going to be joining us in August. And he has a lot of opportunities, I think, for the future.
A lot of things to do.
Yeah.
So tell us, Edwin.
Yeah, as Jonathan mentioned, I think the collaboration is key, and I just like to encourage the industry and other actors to be in contact and to keep pushing together to move our Florida crops going up again.
Excellent. So I want to thank you guys very much for this time that you spent with us talking about this very important and flavorful, I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Sabroso tema. Spanish. Flavorful conversation. So thank you very much, and it's been great to be with you today, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.